It's different in each city and in each county, unfortunately. And then the third piece I want to do a deep dive on, which we touched on a little earlier, is the ways you can make money with short-term rentals, not only for you, but also for your clients, in terms of, there's 3 different strategies that we do in our business. One of them, of course, is buy properties, distress, fix them up, and then do short-term rentals. You can also do a lease strategy where you're leasing the property and then running it through the short-term rental model. And then I think what fits well with what realtors do, we also manage properties for investors, right? And so once you've built this model to basically manage your properties, you can also manage other people's properties. And unlike long-term rentals, it's usually a 25% management fee. So we're going to talk about that opportunity as well. So just a little bit details about my background. I actually started in the real estate industry about 20 years ago, and I started with tax lien investing. So I bought properties through tax deeds, mostly here in Georgia, but also in Maryland, in Baltimore. And so it was through that process. We bought about 350 properties. We sold most of those to other investors because we were in at a lower enough cost basis where we could sell them at a wholesale price. A new investor could come in, rehab the property, and then sell it. But it was through that process that we kind of saw the worst case scenario of properties been vacant for many, many years, needed full gut rehabs, and kind of learned worst case scenario, how to rehab those properties. So we also started doing fix and flips. And when I say we, my wife's in the business as well. She works with our contractors and kind of picks out finishes. In our short-term rental business, she manages our cleaning operation, and then she also does the staging and setup. So I tell everybody she kind of does all the heavy lifting in our business, right? I just do all the technology and automation and things like that. So it's through this process, most real estate investors, and maybe some of you are experiencing this, as an investor, you want to start developing that passive income, kind of preparing for being able to have a consistent monthly cash flow. A lot of stuff that we do in real estate, including real estate agents, it's really you're dependent upon your next deal, your next closing, right? And so the same thing with fix and flips. The money was great, but I got burnt out very quickly from managing contractors. I've got to show up and hire someone else if they mess up. And if you have a slip, your profit margins start getting very tight. And then there's the financial stress. You got the property finished, and then you try to sell it. A lot of you know that doesn't happen right away. And so that could be delayed as well. So we started looking at the long-term rental model, like most investors, and you're told you're doing great if you can clear $400 a month in net revenue. So you got to mass up a pretty large portfolio of properties to be able to get your passive income goals. So I looked at the short-term rental model. This was probably about 9 years ago now, and it was like a light bulb moment for me. Right, the properties stay in much better shape. We're professionally cleaning and inspecting them in between each guest stay, and the properties are generating on that same asset typically 2 to 3 times the revenue that you can get as a long-term rental. And so properties stay in much better shape. You don't have to constantly rehab the property. When we were doing long-term rentals, basically we'd have to evict people right before the holidays. They didn't pay the rent. And then guess what? I'm doing a rehab again and looking at the numbers, and I'm losing on these properties. And so with the short-term rental model, you can blink your eyes on that same property and people think it's higher volume and more people coming and going, but it's actually the properties stay in much better shape because my objective is to make sure that when somebody books that property, they're looking at those listing pictures we took 6 months ago, that it looks exactly like it did when they check in. So anything that's broken or any bumped luggage on the walls causing a scuff, we get all that stuff cleaned up right away for that reason. And so the properties stay in much better shape. So I started, and I'm going to go into some detail about how I started with short-term rentals and how I grew that into a scalable business. As Lakeisha mentioned, I'm also an Airbnb ambassador and a community leader. What that does is it allows me to help other Airbnb hosts on the Airbnb platform set up their listing in the beginning. There's some things you can do strategically to get more exposure to your listing. And so we kind of help a lot of hosts get set up. I'm also the president of a nonprofit that we formed, the Atlanta Short-Term Rental Alliance. and I'm going to talk about that in the regulatory update. And then I'm also a founder of BNB Investing Group, where we do coaching and consulting for investors and real estate agents to build a scalable business. So that's an option as well. So make no mistake about it, and I'm going to talk a lot about Airbnb today. The reason why investors can use this as an option is because of the Airbnb platform. It's been around for a little over 10 years, but it allows you to do this with properties anywhere. You can throw a dart, literally, and be successful at this. We have properties in the suburbs, Beaufort, Gainesville, Marietta, on the south side, Riverdale, Fairburn, Fayetteville, and also, of course, in Atlanta, Midtown, all the popular areas. So Airbnb basically, even though it's been around so long, ultimately, I really see that this is start of the growth pattern, and it's going to have more to come. There has been some bad press about using short-term rentals and Airbnbs since COVID, where people are kind of moving back to hotels and complaining about the cleaning fees and things like that. But the reality is we still have a lot of demand that's still pushing, this market. The other thing that's working well with short-term rentals, similar to long-term rentals, you had a lot of hedge fund money coming into that space. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've had a lot of institutional money that's come in and done new construction specific in certain cities for short-term rentals. And so you essentially have a full building of 200 units that are all doing short-term rentals, and a lot of investments that are coming in from institutional buyers as well. Same thing with single-family residents. They're buying up properties for the purpose of doing short-term rentals because they see the benefit and that opportunity in it being more lucrative. So again, Airbnb platform, a lot of you probably have stayed at Airbnb, so you're familiar with the process. Again, it's another reason why this is successful. It's more of a community sense. Your guests are going to review you, you're going to review your guests, and it's kind of this community-based platform that allows you to list not only your property, but people do this with, still to this day, they can rent their couch out, one of their rooms for additional revenue. So Airbnb has kind of grown to about 5 million listings worldwide. For a very long time, they were kind of right a little over 4 million. And so it's in the recent couple of years that the listings have increased. That has also contributed to some of the lower occupancy and some of the lower nightly rates. Some of you that are already doing Airbnb, not only in Atlanta, but all over, have recognized a dip. And so I'm going to show you some of the stats with a 5-year history that looks at the historical information. A lot of us during COVID experienced kind of a bump in our activity. We probably had 20 to 30% higher occupancy levels and about the same with the nightly rates. That was all during the staycations and people working remotely, essential workers. Now that activity has kind of subsided and died down a little bit, the reality is our pricing is kind of back down to pre-COVID levels, essentially. This is an example of one of the properties that we've done. This is in Midtown Atlanta, Ponce City Market. Now, there are 27 units in this building. We started with 4. And this is the rental arbitrage model. So when I started, even though I had properties that we had converted from long-term to short-term, the rental arbitrage model is a quick way to grow a scalable business. And the numbers are not $300 or $400 per unit. They're more like $800 to $1,500 per unit on 1 bedrooms. On 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, that number gets bigger, right? So it could be $2,500 to $3,000 in net revenue after you pay all your expenses.
And is that because of your location for that market?
This one right here, this brings a location. This is near Ponce City Market, walkable to Piedmont Park, the Atlanta Beltline, all the restaurants and everything like that. So if you're starting with a clean slate with this strategy, why reinvent the wheel? Go to where all the activity is, right? So that's what we did with this building. It's got a common area rooftop, view of the skyline of Atlanta. And, this is just an example of the numbers. Now, even though this calendar looks like it's fully booked, there's probably 6 different guests that are coming and going here. And so we run this like a business. So when they check out, our cleaners come in at 11 to clean that property. And then it's cleared up for someone else to check in at 4. So very similar to hotel mentality and being able to make sure that your property is always available for booking, even if the calendar is empty. That's what our cleaners are going to do as a standard rule. So in this example, this is a 1-bedroom. The monthly rent on this is about $1,400. With all the expenses, utilities, internet, you're at about $1,800 to $2,000. And so on this unit, on this particular month, we cleared close to $2,000 in net revenue. Again, compared to a long-term rental strategy, it's a much more lucrative number. Another example of another 1-bedroom, 3,300 gross. This works well not only with apartments, but also with 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom homes, right? So this is in Tampa, Florida. We're also in the Tampa, Florida market. This is a 3-bedroom. Even though it's a 65% occupancy, the average nightly rate is $212. We're still about $3,400 in gross rental revenue. And to rent this as a long-term rental is probably around $1,800. Okay, so doesn't matter where the property is, your occupancy and your nightly rates are going to change or adjust. Yeah.
This is an arbitrage?
This is an arbitrage. Yeah. So we do this with large houses as well as 1-bedroom houses because the spread starts to get larger, right? Yeah.
I'm curious about your strategy to get landlords to allow that.
I was thinking.
Strategy to get landlords to understand. So make no mistake about it, it's a numbers game, right? Not all landlords are going to agree to do that, right? And so, you are able, all the things I've talked about positively, there's other things you can cover with that landlord, like right out of the gate in that first conversation. Immediately, I'm asking for a longer term lease, right? So when I set this up like a 3-bedroom, it's going to cost me to do it right around $15,000 to $20,000. Get it staged and set up, all the supplies, linens, towels, sheets, fully operational kitchen. Again, we run this like a business. I don't want my cleaners doing laundry, so I'm buying a lot of inventory in the beginning so that we have a laundry service that'll come and we'll actually get the laundry, enough inventory to be able to turn it like that. And so we have the advantage for the landlord is it's a longer term lease. So most landlords don't get that offer, right? So they look at stability. That's a 2-3 year term. I need enough time, 6 to 8 months usually, to recoup my initial investment for setting up the property. Then after that, my monthly net return comes, right? And so the other advantages that you can talk about with the landlord is the properties, like we talked about, stay in much better shape. I actually don't want the landlord handling lower level maintenance, right? So if someone checks in on a Friday and the AC is not working, it's not acceptable for me to say, oh, the HVAC guy will be here next Tuesday, okay? I can't do that. They might be checking out on Monday, right? So I need to have my handyman, I'm happy to pay him a premium. He'll go out there and basically maybe it's an AC filter, maybe it's a breaker, maybe it's something simple. Same thing with the toilet clogging. I don't want to be hung up with reaching out to the landlord. So from the landlord's perspective, a lot of that lower level headache maintenance that happens with the other tenants will not happen with me, right? Plus it's a corporate lease. There's timely monthly payments. There's no issues with collections of rents. And so I'm also naming them as additional insured on the insurance. So there's a bullet point list of items that we go over now. I'm going to cover this later, but I also do a 3-hour CE approved class that I'm going to be having some dates coming out in April, where I'll do a deep dive and I'll provide you guys with an addendum of exactly what to ask for and a lot more details as well. So here's another example. This is a 5-bedroom house in Beaufort, Georgia. Nowhere special. It's 45 minutes north of Atlanta. I actually live in Beaufort as well. But average nightly rate $329, occupancy 71%. House is nothing special. It's just a regular split level. What we're finding is with short-term rentals and with Airbnb specifically, the larger properties are getting a lot more activity, right? If you look at the math, it makes logical sense. It's a win-win situation. If I've got a family of 10 people that are going to Beaufort, and my option is to go to 4 or 5 different hotel rooms, even in Beaufort, that's going to cost me, close to, at a decent place, $200 per night per room. So I'm already at $1,200 after you add everything up, compared to 300 or 400 a night in a 5-bedroom home. Everybody's got their own space. You've got a full operational kitchen. So it's not only families that are traveling that are recognizing this benefit. There's also workers that we take in a lot that are coming in, moving around and traveling. We've got a 4-bedroom house in Fairburn. We've just had consecutive back-to-back contractors that are coming into that area to do construction, and they need somewhere to stay for 4 or 5 nights. Their accounting folks are going through the same logic. They can go stay in a extended stay hotel for 4 guys and 4 different hotel rooms, or they can book a house for $300 a night. And if you go through the math with me, for $300 a night, if you're booked for 10 nights, that's $3,000. You book for 20, that's $6,000, right? And so on a ordinarily 5-bedroom house in this suburban market, I could probably get, I don't know, $2,200 a month in rent. But here, conservatively, I can do $6,000 to $7,000 a month in rental revenue. So again, the numbers are just a no-brainer from my perspective to want to pursue this.
And just out of curiosity, that home in Beaufort, is it in the HOA community?
It is not in an HOA community, and that's a good question and a good point to make. I highly recommend to not do this in an HOA community, right?
Right.
So if they don't already prohibit short-term rentals at some point in time in the future, they will and they can. It's not worth the risk. Yes, Lakeisha.
You mentioned the benefits for rental arbitrage in doing it with a private landlord, but what would be those benefit factors with an apartment complex, like the one you showed us over in Ponce City Market?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through some case studies
Okay.
besides the one at Ponce City Market and talk about the advantages for apartment complexes.
Okay.
I'm also going to talk about the Airbnb friendly apartment complexes. Let me table that.
Okay,
Give you more
okay.
details. Yes.
Are you primarily using Airbnb or other sites as well?
So again, with the concept of running this like a business, Airbnb is one of the platforms that we use. However, no matter what you do as a host, and this is nationwide, most of your revenue is going to come from Airbnb. That's why I talk a lot about the benefits of Airbnb. Has that been figured out, right? They charge us 3% as a host to list our property. So for that 3%, they're bringing the guest. I don't spend any money on marketing. They are giving me like a $2 billion insurance policy that I use quite frequently. If there's any damage for the property, I get fully reimbursed through that policy. There are other platforms that haven't figured out simple things like collecting the payment from the guest before they check in, chasing them down for the 3-digit CVC code. So a lot of that stuff it doesn't exist on Airbnb because they haven't figured it out. They've got all that stuff done. So we do have our immediate go-to other platforms are VRBO, Booking.com. We're also an approved Marriott Homes and Villas vendor. And so Marriott, even though they're a hotel, recognize the economic benefit of short-term rentals in larger homes and being convenient that way. So they provide our properties to their Bonvoy members that can book using their points. And basically they convert that to cash for a reservation. So it goes back to, it's all about maximizing exposure on that listing and getting as many bookings as possible. So even though I know that I'm going to get most of it through Airbnb, I also do a lot of direct bookings. So we have a direct booking website. A lot of guests that we have are return guests. And so when they return, I don't go through Airbnb, they come direct to our direct booking platform. All right, so these were just a few other examples. This is another house in Beaufort. The other cool thing, if you're starting out or if your investors are starting out, there's different categories on Airbnb that allow you to basically create an experience. So since COVID, Airbnb has kind of made a change on their platform. Instead of focusing on where you want to book and what city you want to book on, people now don't really, because they're working remotely, they're kind of traveling, they're looking more for an experience. So Airbnb has these different categories as a starting point when people book, where you can book a lake house, a mountain house, a castle, a tiny home, a tree house, right? This was a horse farm in Gainesville that basically had a 5-bedroom house with a swimming pool that sat on top of a hill. And so people could go down to the horse ranch and learn how to ride horses or have pony rides for the kids. So it was kind of an experience in addition to having somewhere to stay. And so that's another option when you're looking at this strategically. People are doing simple things like, doing these yurts and tiny homes that don't cost that much to construct. And they're also commanding pretty high nightly rates, $200 to $300 a night for something that's smaller. Even ADUs now are getting popular. And an ADU in your backyard, you can get $250 to $300 a night, and it's smaller than a studio. But you're able, so, big thing in Atlanta, you can do that with residentially zoned R4 and R5 homes now, where you can get permits to do an ADU in your backyard. So a lot of empty nesters are basically building an ADU, moving in the ADU, and renting out the main house as a short-term rental, or vice versa, right? So those are other different strategic options that investors are doing. But just wanted to touch on the category thing. So let me dig into the stats, right? So the city of Atlanta basically has about 11,000 active listings. And so this is from a platform called AirDNA. It's separate from Airbnb. And so they gather all the historical performance, mostly from Airbnb and VRBO on short-term rental activity. And they go back about 5 years, not only in local markets in the States, but globally, right? So I mentioned earlier, I'm from the Caribbean. So when I travel, I use this tool as well to do analysis on historical information about what's going on in that market. It also gives me an estimate on future revenue. So towards the end of this, I'm going to give you guys a link for a free trial to sign up for this, because this is a cool way to kind of check in and do market research, not only for your investments, but for your clients' investments, to understand what those opportunities look like. So like I mentioned before, most of the listings are here on Airbnb. There are some on VRBO. Also, what I mentioned before, statistically, and this holds true in most major cities, not only Atlanta, the larger properties are doing well, not only for the economics, but also because of the supply that's available, right? So most of the inventory are 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, almost 60%, or more than 60%, right? And so when you've got a 5-bedroom house, not only is there kind of pent up demand for that, but there's also not that much available for people to book. So what that does is it creates more of a lucrative environment for you that has higher occupancy and higher nightly rates, right? And so when I first started this, my first 12 properties were 1-bedrooms, right? I didn't start doing 2-bedrooms and larger until after that. And the concept was, oh, well, these 1-bedrooms probably do great. They're like a hotel, should do fine. But the reality is, knowing what I know today, if you're able to, the 4 and 5 bedrooms actually will perform much better than the 1 and 2 bedrooms. So I talked a little bit about the growth. Even though we've had the issues with the regulatory and the ordinances and the rules in Atlanta, we still have had consistent growth with the number of listings that are coming into the marketplace. And so some of these listings are professionals like our company that are running it like a business, and some of them are kind of mom and pop, just one listing. So statistically, there's about 60% of the listings that are just one individual listing, right? So it's not necessarily somebody that has multiple properties, or if a manager like me that has multiple listings. I point that out because Airbnb, again, they got started based on this home sharing concept and the ability for you as an individual to be able to rent out your room or a part of your home to supplement your income. And so anytime that they hear any rumblings of short-term rentals being banned, they kind of gravitate to, well, let's push this primary residency as a requirement. And that's what happened in Atlanta, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. So this is a 5-year history of the occupancies levels, and this is an average of all the properties in Atlanta So the average overall in all property sizes is 51%. The average stay is 3 days, and the average booking lead time is around 37. Now these colors, this red line here is 2020, obviously during COVID. So March, April, those of us that were doing short-term rentals through COVID got scared out of our minds because we got everything canceled, right? We had everything canceled, everything got shut down, but it only lasted a very short period of time, 30 to 45 days, before we had essential workers that needed to come in. We had other activity that was happening. All of a sudden, people want to do staycations because they got to be, locked in. So we had a lot of people from the north and from the Midwest coming down to Atlanta because the weather's nicer and booking 20, 30, 40 nights, right, at higher prices. Now, this blue line is where we are with 2023. And so you hear some of the, those of you that are doing Airbnbs, there has been some issues with occupancy levels the last 12 months, but it's kind of like a sticker shock. People were accustomed to what was happening during COVID. The reality is that, we are still in 2023 about where we were occupancy wise during COVID. So the only slight change that's occurring is there's a little bit increase in the number of listings available. And if you're not running this like a business and you don't have certain tools in place to adjust your pricing, which I'll talk about briefly as well, then you're missing out, right? Some people are not pricing their properties low enough and missing out on bookings, and the reverse, they're not pricing them high enough. And so a lot of people that are doing this just as a hobby or doing 1 or 2 properties have complained, oh, I haven't been getting bookings, or it's been hard to make money. The reason is they're not honed into these different tools that we use to run our business, essentially. The same kind of trend with revenue. The red line during COVID, the blue line for 2023. Nightly rate, same type of activity. We're still kind of in line with where we were historically. Now, the other great thing about AirDNA is you can do a lot of research on different markets. And so they've come up with what's called an investability score that rates each market based on certain attributes, right? And so it looks at investability in this market compared to other markets. So what does that mean? So how much does it cost for me to buy a property to be able to generate short-term rental revenue compared to other markets? Rental demand, rental growth, seasonality, and then of course regulation. And so it's that 70 score, 0 to 100, is based on those different attributes. The tool will also not only give you the high level information, you can also slice and dice this based on bedroom size. So if you're doing an analysis on a 3-bedroom, you can kind of only look at these stats based on a 3-bedroom to look in the market to understand what those opportunities are. And so what this is doing is it's looking at the historical data of all of the short-term rentals, and you can also prioritize it based on zip code or neighborhood. And you can kind of understand what market you want to target as an investor based on those scores as a starting point.
So based on this information, does your company, I guess, raise and lower the prices per this data? Or because you've been doing it for so long, you know what the trend is or should be?
Yeah, so AirDNA is used more for kind of forecasting, understanding historical revenue. They do have an option to help you price your listing, but there are 3 other platforms that do a little bit of more focused job on pricing analysis. And so those 3 different tools are called, they're called price optimization tools. And they basically link directly to your listing. And they are looking actively at what's happening in the market, and they adjust your price based on supply and demand automatically, right? So when you have the All-Star game coming in, or if you've got Taylor Swift's concert coming in, you're not going to miss out or forget that tool is going to do those adjustments for you. It's not a set it and forget it. You still want to oversee what it's doing. But those 3 different platforms, the 3 main ones, they're all very similar. They do the same thing. It's called Price Labs, Wheelhouse, and Beyond Pricing. So those three platforms are a little bit better sophisticated to do kind of a forward-looking to kind of help you manage the pricing on your listing going forward.
Can you mention those again, Rich?
Price Labs, Wheelhouse, and Beyond Pricing.
So if someone's complaining that they're not getting bookings, it's because they're going rogue.
They're going rogue. They're not paying attention. As much as I talk positively about the Airbnb market platform, don't use what Airbnb calls smart pricing. So a lot of the amateurs, a lot of people doing this as a hobby, they latch on to, oh, let me just tap into the smart pricing. Airbnb must know what they're doing. No, Airbnb's objective is to pump volume. They want more bookings so they can make, now they're charging us 3%, they're charging the guests 10 to 15%, depending on the market. So they're less concerned about getting the best price. They're more concerned about pumping volume. So anytime you look at that smart pricing, it's going to be much lower than what you could potentially get.
And just to piggyback on what you just said about you're being charged 3% and then the guest is charged 15%, another reason to have a direct booking opportunity.
Exactly.
Because these fees to you and the person doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So if you had somebody there, just like our own real estate business, the fortune is in the follow-up. You know, are you allowed to reach out to them and say, hey, can you come back next year? Or
you are after the fact. So
after the fact.
Airbnb does a pretty good job, so does VRBO actually, of preventing you from doing a direct reach out before you finalize the booking. Right? So they have these AI tools where if you get an inquiry and the person hasn't booked yet, and you say, oh, call me at this number so we can chat, it's going to block the message.
No, I mean after the fact, because
But yeah,
you
no, after
become
the
my
fact.
client,
Mhm.
and I should have your contact info, right?
Yeah, so we use Airbnb and VRBO do try to mask the email information even after the booking.
Oh gosh.
So again, running this like a business, we use what's called a guest portal. And so even on Airbnb, I'm not accepting every single booking, right? What this tool does is it lets me do additional vetting for our guests. And so we can basically be comfortable and confident to test new platforms because I'm doing additional vetting. I'm not relying on Airbnb or VRBO to say, yeah, I have their ID, don't worry. This is a good guest, don't worry. And so I score each guest profile that comes in, even on instant booking. And basically, I'm looking at their social media history. Was that email address just set up yesterday, or are they active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc.? I'm looking at their IP address location. They say they're coming in from Chicago. Where does the IP address say they're making the inquiry from? So I'm actually assessing a score similar to this score here, so that I treat each guest a little bit differently. So in some cases, based on that score, I might require them to upload their ID. I might require them to take a selfie with their ID. And I'm looking at credit card name, driver's license name. Another big thing that we do that knocks out a lot of the riffraff and a lot of the people trying to throw parties is we have minimum age requirements on all of our listings. So most of our properties, with some exception, are 25 as a minimum age requirement. If we had a lot of college kids that were displaced during COVID, so there's some exceptions to that. But as a general rule, we have some of our higher end luxury properties where 30 is a minimum age requirement. And so I have that posted on my listing. So immediately I'm distracting some of those guests that we're going to try to do something they shouldn't be doing, because I'm going to ask them for the ID after they book with me. Yes.
Is the guest portal through Airbnb or is it through a separate service?
It's through a separate service. And there's a couple different options for that as well.
Would that be in the CE class that you're going to teach?
Yeah. So I go into a lot of those details in that CE class to kind of give you not only how they work, but what the options are. What are the best.
Yeah, I'm a fan of saying no.
Yeah.
I'm like a toddler. No.
Right.
I'm a fan.
What about
fans?
What about pets? So that's a great question. So if you're looking at this from a profitability standpoint, there is an opportunity to make your listing pet friendly. There's not a lot of listings that are doing that. We personally have been very strict with a no pet policy, just for personal preference. However, you can still do that by charging additional pet fees, charging additional cleaning fees, deposits, and things like that. Airbnb does have some pricing tools that allow you to put that in there. So it's really just a personal choice in terms of how you want to do it. We do make exceptions. We do take on some midterm stays where it might be a pet that's needing to stay, and we'll do some additional deposits. Sometimes we'll make them non-refundable and things like that. So it's really kind of up to you. Yes.
If you have a guest who does the instant booking and you do the check on that guest and find out they're actually a guest that you don't want to stay on your property, how would you handle that without offending them?
Yeah, right. So not only not offending them, and again, I'm going to use this term again, running it like a business. I'm a super host on Airbnb, which means I get penalized immediately if I cancel on somebody, right? And so in order to avoid that circumstance, there is an exception in Airbnb's policy that if you are not comfortable with that guest for whatever reason, you don't have to give them details, you can cancel it without penalty.
How soon do you need to contact Airbnb and let them know you have an issue? Because you want to pull them in on your idea of cancellation before you cancel, correct?
Yes, correct. And in that way, you can get it done, with approval. So you obviously want to do it as soon as possible, but there's no set timeline,
Okay.
as long as it's done before they have to check in, in
Okay.
reasonable time.
But what if it's an instant book, like I had, yes, do instant book and they're trying to check in that evening, and they instant book like that morning. So how do you circumvent that if it's a guest that you don't want,
Well, so you'd have to do it like right away, right? When you recognize that there's some issues that you're not comfortable with, you would have to reach out to Airbnb support and let them know that, and then get them to cancel it without penalty.
Gotcha, get them to cancel that, okay.
And they won't be able to do a review, right, on you if you do. But that's the thing too, that, of course, the reviews make you a super host too.
Right.
So if they go and do a bad review because they canceled, they didn't even give you a reason why or whatever, what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, so in most cases, when that happens, they don't have the ability to review. There are some, it depends on when the cancellation occurs, that they can still give you a review, but you can also give them a review too, or respond to their negative review. The same reasoning for being able to cancel on them. Airbnb does have exceptions for removing a bad review if it's not reasonable and it's not without merit. So there's a way to get that done too. It's a process.
So, recently I had received a booking. I have an Airbnb that I manage for a husband, and they have a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. And so on Airbnb, 2 of the rooms are closed off, but somebody tried to book it for like a whole year. And so, with the amount, because you said no smart pricing, I have my
Sorry.
smart pricing.
Now you know.
Yeah, I'm about to take it. I'm actually doing it right now. But so it was like a ridiculous amount. It was like almost $70,000.
Yeah.
And so they asked me privately to like how much it would cost for them to rent it out on a month-to-month basis for a year.
Yeah.
And so the person, they did not have any picture on their profile,
Right.
and they were new to Airbnb, so instantly it was like a big red flag for me. And the owner of, like, he looks at the messages sometimes, so he saw it and he was like, well, let's do it. And I'm like,
Right.
like, how would you have handled that situation?
Yeah. So there's a whole reason why we focus on short-term rentals for all the benefits I talked about earlier. And so when you start looking at those types of opportunities, then all of a sudden you're becoming a long-term landlord. Now, I'm okay with midterm with certain controls, but when they want to do off-platform month-to-month, you're basically you're turning it into a long-term rental. And so you've got to go through additional vetting as if you did want to go down that road, you would require them to fill out a rental application, do a background check, do a credit check, check creditworthiness, get a deposit, get first month lapse. So from my perspective, especially if it's for a year, unless it's, we do a lot of stuff with the film industry, right? So sometimes those are 4 months, 5 months, but they're going to pay us right up front.
Mm-hmm.
There's no issues with the monthly, month to month. But when it's a regular person trying to do month to month, it's very difficult to have that work unless you've got certain controls in place. And then you still run the same risk of the headaches I talked about before. A year later, you're going to have a property that's going to need rehabbing or remodeling, right? So
So you services too, so.
Yeah, right. Now, the only other exception to that is if you do more of a midterm stay, so you do maybe, 2 months or 3 months, but you do similar protections, right? One of the benefits, again, for short-term rental, to be able to do this, it's not a landlord-tenant relationship, so I don't have to evict somebody if they violate our house rules. We actually have, in all of our markets, we have an armed security service that will go remove that party if they are not following our rules and regulations. Now, we've hosted probably 9,000 guests last year. We probably have to do this once, right? It goes back to your vetting and your upfront, so you minimize that risk. But evidently, when you do have that happen, you're not having to go through the eviction process. Now, when you start looking at those, 5, 6 month, 1 year processes, then you're potentially looking at a long-term tenant and have to evict if they don't pay, and you're just back as a long-term landlord. So,
Thank you.
I got a bad review.
you got a bad review?
Yeah.
Did you mess up? What'd you do?
I didn't do nothing. I didn't do a thing. It was my first bad review after having the Airbnb for 2 years. So a lady who wanted to be addressed as Dr. Whatever. I don't manage it. I have a property manager, right? And she checked in. And so I have these modern beds that have pull drawers at the bottom.
Mhm.
So those where the drawers are at the bottom. And prior to coming, she says, I'm a neat freak and I really need the house to be super clean. And I'm like, I respect that because, I need it to be clean as well. And, it's a brand new place and all. So she comes to the place and she starts examining the cleanliness of the home.
Yeah.
And then she pulls the drawer and there was a dust bunny. Because in the year and a half, no one stayed long enough to use the drawer. They just hung up their clothes in the closet. And so she took a photo of it and she was like, she's completely disgusted. And I was just so shocked. And the property manager was like, I said, tell her to leave. Tell her to leave, please tell her to leave. I said, because I cannot afford the foolishness.
Right.
I almost said that shit. I was like, please. And she's like, no, Sabine, we can. And I love them because they have the chat GPT language to not have the emotion. I'm the owner.
Right.
I'm going to be emotional.
Yeah.
She's going to be very business, right?
Yeah.
She
And
didn't hear
so-
you cussing.
Right. Right. She can hear, but the lady, doctor, whoever. And we had the same last name. It was terrible. And so then she, says to her, and the lady was not letting up. She goes, oh, I can't believe I have to pay a cleaning fee. I'm the one cleaning. And the next picture she shows, she has the fantastic that I have in the kitchen and she's wiping it. Oh my God. There's evidence of the crazy. And so we offered her, oh my God, you can leave right now. No fees, total refund. Please, you can leave right now. Well, I got here. Where the hell am I going to find somewhere else to stay? I didn't book this. My assistant booked this and whatever. You're like, you can leave in the morning at no cost. She wouldn't leave. A raggedy behind stayed for the entire 3 weeks.
Oh.
And then when she left, she gave the review. And she said, I'm not saying it's disgusting, but make your own decision. Just that passive aggressive foolishness was the bad review. And we went from super host, 5 stars only, and we dropped.
You didn't reach out to Airbnb to dispute it?
And he removed.
I told her to, again, I'm the owner, right?
you're
So
not
I'm like,
being-
okay, please dispute it. She goes, okay, we'll do our thing. But I don't think it did a thing. And then, I prayed about it because, I need prayer. And then 2 weeks later, someone said, I'm so glad I didn't listen to that horrible review. This place is amazing.
Right.
And then they just gave us rave reviews. Child, I went over that, bought cookies. I was just dropping stuff off like Santa Claus. But that was my rookie lesson.
Yeah.
That I can't control everything. And am I mad at the cleaning lady because she didn't open up the drawer and dust it?
Right.
No, I'm not.
Right.
Because you know why? I don't think she moved behind the refrigerator after a year.
Yeah.
Because you didn't move behind your refrigerator in your
Of
house
course. Right.
after a year. You forgot to.
Right.
So it's an opportunity to call Airbnb when something like that
There is.
happens.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Have them remove.
Oh
the
yeah.
bad
Even
odors.
I could have called because she has as the host and then she has me as the co-host. But I just stayed in my lane because again, they're the professionals.
Yeah,
You know?
there's a couple of things I would have done to kind of just add on.
So you trying to be my property manager?
No.
I mean, you might as well.
If it happens again, if it happens again. Now let's back up for a second, right? So she brings up a great point that we haven't touched on yet, right? This short-term rental model is very intensive. Make no mistake about it. It's a hospitality business. If you don't have your stuff together with the hospitality, you're going to fail very quickly. Okay. She's been doing this for a long time. She's maintained her superhost status. It only takes one guest, cray to come in and do something stupid like that.
Oh, and mind you, I know nothing. I don't do anything. I'm piggybacking on my property
Right,
manager's
right,
reputation.
Right.
So I'm still a student here.
Right. So a couple things, make sure you have the right cleaning team in place that's experienced to do short-term rentals. This is not a regular residential clean. They have to touch every surface, even on the larger properties in between each guest. Simple things, as you can tell, can cause a cancellation or a bad review. Simple things like one strand of hair on a pillow,
Yes.
dirty towels behind the bathroom door that were forgotten, wings in the microwave from 3 days ago when the last guest checked out. Any little small detail like that, if your cleaners are on point, those are going to become constant problems for you.
And the reason why I even mentioned you being my person is because I am looking for new people, because I had a year and a half and I don't feel like I've heard stuff before about a dust bunny or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But
So
that's the biggest part of the business.
Right. So I would have given that lady the benefit of the doubt in the beginning,
Mhm.
right, and an opportunity to work it out. So apologize for what you've experienced. Please go to dinner on me. I'll have my cleaning team come in and correct it and rectify it. By the time you come back from dinner, everything will be good.
She didn't want the cleaning people to come back.
No, and then that might.
But thank God they offered it, but I hear what you're saying.
But you
Yeah.
offer that, yet they might turn it down. But it also gives you an insight into, is this person just trying to get a discount, or are they just trying to, are they legitimately concerned about the issues, right? And then your product manager did the right thing. Let them cancel, move on, because you can't please. Once you go down that road with them, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, because when she didn't want the cleaning person to come back, then she said, okay, well, you'd like to cancel at no cost. And they're like, what can I do to make her happy? Because I will come back right now. But I understand her privacy. Maybe she didn't want anybody in the house. She brought her clothes. She's like, I don't want anybody in here.
So once it's been done and it's a bad review, you can still reply to that bad review in the public part of the listing and put your response, that you offered all these things and she turned them down. To your point, you can also contact Airbnb support and explain the whole situation to them with pictures and make the argument that they can remove that review. That's another exception that they can make if it's just kind of a ridiculous situation.
It's all about the cleaning. I mean, after 2 years, it's always about the cleaning.
But people are going to be people. Like,
Well,
the same thing exactly happened to me.
But I don't feel my cleaning people are noteworthy. I wouldn't want them to clean my house
Well, no.
because I'm sick. Okay, I like bleach, right? And so I'm like, I bought bleach. Why are we not using it?
Yeah.
I'm not green. Bleach, right? So we're not aligned with what I think clean is. I have epoxy that I put in the garage because I wanted it to be like a gorgeous experience when you open up, those pretty epoxy. And I saw mud trails, and I said, so excuse me. So in the cleaning, we don't clean the epoxy. So I know that I need something better because my level of detail, like you didn't see that. There's a hose. You could have just, washed it down.
Yeah, because with being new to Airbnb and things like that, I never even thought about having a security team and all those different people. But do you have them on like a retainer, or are they paid for each event? Are they like 24-hour people, like say a locksmith or a tow truck? Like, how do you maneuver that? I know earlier you said you can't have people waiting till Tuesday if they book.
Right.
So is that like part of a team or something you teach with? Do you have a specific company you work with consistently to avoid having cleaners you think don't care? Like how do you do that part?
No, so we, my wife and I thankfully have 0 employees in our business.
Oh, okay.
We've got 75 properties that we've managed, and we outsource everything to outside companies on purpose.
Okay.
I have no reason to want to start hiring and firing people, and it's very tempting for those of you that are doing it. Your 30% of your revenue goes to the cleaning fees, so it's very tempting. Let me open up a cleaning company, but I like staying in my lane.
Right. Okay.
So the maintenance guys, the security team, the cleaning teams in different markets, we basically just, in the beginning when we set those listings up, we'll do interviews with different cleaning companies. we try to select smaller and mid-sized companies that recognize the ability to grow with us and kind of see that value. We also do this in remote markets. I mentioned we're in the Tampa, Florida market. And so even though I have properties down there, I have no reason to physically go there myself.
Okay.
We have all of our boots on the ground teams, our cleaning teams and our maintenance teams that are there. When you're hiring for maintenance and handymen, they have to recognize the way that this business works. Again, I'm happy to pay them a premium on them going out, especially if it's on a Saturday night and based on the timing. And so they are somewhat on call. There's not a retainer,
Okay.
but they are on call when things come up because they will have a couple hour notice in most cases to go out there and check out what's going on. Yes.
Do you have like multiple, like in case one HVAC technician can't come out for whatever reason, there's an emergency or whatever, you have like a second one on hand?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. And then the security service, same thing. They're kind of on call, right? So in the beginning, my wife and I used to go do this when stuff happened. We had a house over here in Mableton, a 5-bedroom house with a swimming pool. And we had a group that came in from New York, and it was probably 7 or 8 younger, probably in their mid to late 20s. And the guy that booked the property got there first, checked in, probably drove from New York straight. So he went to bed. And so he knew all the house rules and what's supposed to be done, what's not to be done. And then throughout the day and the night, all his other friends started coming. And so before you know it, they're throwing a party in the pool in the back, and they're on the back porch, smoking weed and having a good old time. We're trying to message because we see all this on the camera, right? Outdoor surveillance cameras. And so we're messaging the guy that booked the property. Of course, he's ignoring it and not responding. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, my wife and I go over there, and my wife's like taking pictures of them like this. Of them smoking in the screened-in area where they're not supposed to smoke, stuff like that. So that was one of the times we've done that. Now it's much better to separate yourself from that, right? Have an armed security guy. One of the main guys we use is like 6'5" and like very, very. Even though he's got a gun, he probably doesn't need the gun, right? So anytime something happens now, we pick up the phone, we call them. And if it's over the weekend, it may be a $200 event. If it's during the week, it might be $120 or $150. But it's worth having that expense so that you can kind of distance yourself from those situations.
And you're not liable as like the owner for calling security on the people, like you're covered.
Yeah, so the house rules are very specific on your listing that show these are my house rules. I have quiet times from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. We're not disturbing the neighbors. We do not allow parties or events or gatherings. Only the people coming to the listing are allowed. So in my guest portal, I'm not only capturing my phone number and email address for the person booking, but anybody else that's staying there as well. We get a list of the names of people that are staying there. And so if anything happens, everybody understands. We give them an opportunity. We're not going to be just showing up and kicking people out just because they broke one rule. We'll give them an opportunity to correct it. But there's some circumstances where it requires you to just have them just go get them extracted.
And then I think I usually see the house rules laminated in the house somewhere, and then the house rules are in the guest book about what to do in the area. So the house rules are kind of in your face.
Yeah. So it's not going to be a surprise when you ask them to correct the situation. Even in the guest portal, I get them to agree once again that they sign off on what the house rules are. So
Refreshing their memory.
right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So back on AirDNA. So it shows you by market with the score and kind of what the nightly rates are. And again, this is the average of the market right now, but you can trim this down to say, just show me the 5 bedrooms, just show me the 2 bedrooms, whatever you want to look at. And this again helps you, whether it's you or your investor, kind of figuring out what market you want to target to buy properties and or to do rental arbitrage. It's just to show you some comparisons. Like Eastlake is a pretty good market. They've got 84 active listings. The score is pretty high. Average annual revenue around $40,000, 58% occupancy. Shows you the listings. One of the other great things about AirDNA is they've started to pull in from the MLS properties that are listed for sale. Now, So there's a category in AirDNA that basically, as you're looking in your target market, you can say, oh, by the way, what's for sale? Let me check those out. And it provides you with the revenue potential for those properties that are listed for sale.
That's nice.
One of the other great things, and again, as a realtor, this comes in handy. There's a lot of investors that are buying properties that are already up and running as Airbnbs, right? We just picked up one in Moseley Park, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, in the West End. And the person that we bought it from had it already up as running as an Airbnb. Now, as a seller, they can tell you whatever they want to tell you, right? But this tool gives you insight to what their actual historical performance has been, right?
So you put in that person, that address.
You put in that
Nice.
address, and it ties into the platform to provide you that historical information. It goes back as far as 5 years. And so we've had clients as well that are looking. We looked at a 2-bedroom condo in Panama City Beach. A lot of those condos are already being done as short-term rentals. And so we looked at 5 different properties that were for sale, and we drilled into their historical performance to see exactly how they performed, to figure out which ones they wanted to buy. Yes.
So just like AirDNA shows you the areas that are most profitable, does it show you the areas where there is a need or lack for Airbnbs or short-term rentals? Does it highlight those areas where?
It does in a way, because you can determine, it tells you how many active listings there are in each market. And so you can kind of tell based on how many active listings compared to the size of that city and so on. So it doesn't really have it as a reverse search.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, but you can kind of determine it based on the data that you're providing.
Okay.
So just another few examples. Marietta, a little bit lower revenue, a little bit lower occupancy, nightly rate average. This zip code in Marietta is kind of East Marietta, is a little bit better. Same thing, it gives you all the listings and also gives you properties that are for sale.
Okay. It seemed like closer to the stadium, it would be really high.
Right, with Tourist Park.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is Buford, again, just kind of looking at different areas. Again, compared to East Lake and compared to Marietta, the revenue is much higher, 62,000, with 56% occupancy. So you wouldn't think that a kind of a suburban area that far out would do that well. And that's why I'm saying it's really just, it doesn't matter where that property is. You can still perform and get good revenue out of it. Drill down to that zip code, same thing, gives us properties for sale. And that investability score is looking at the sales activity and determining how that market is compared to the others based on the price it takes to buy a property that's already retailed. So I'm going to kind of spin through some of these just to kind of give you some more stats on the historical performance. January actually started out with a very low occupancy in the month of January compared to the historical. There are some things that are going to start to open up in the market. There's the expectation this spring and summer that international travel is going to come back a lot more stronger, and things of that nature. And so, it still speaks to the folks that have complained about, that dark blue line is 2023. The other lines are the occupancy levels in the prior years. And so there definitely has been a little bit of a decline on that. We also have started to see a dip in how many new listings there are in January as well, compared to the prior year. And so, that helps with demand. I always like to look at how Atlanta stats compare to the US. And so we talked about the increase in number of available listings across the United States. We've had a similar increase in Atlanta, but it's kind of plateaued out, again, because of the regulatory environment, the uncertainty. A lot of investors have held back doing anything because they're not sure what the rules are going to be, or they're uncertain about the rules.
So if you're already running an Airbnb, if a new rule comes out that you grandfather in, what automatically changes with you as well?
Not currently,
Okay.
and I'm going to get into that. Again, this kind of looks at more occupancy trends between what's happening in the United States versus Atlanta. And then this goes back to what I talked about earlier with the higher number of properties doing better than the smaller ones. And so this is looking at your occupancy levels from 0 to 100%. And as you can tell, the 6+ bedrooms in the budget category tend to do the best compared to, studios and 1 bedrooms, and even the 2 and 3 and 4 bedrooms. So if you have the ability, or your investor has the ability, definitely consider looking at the larger properties if you're looking at this model. Again, I like to kind of look at what the other markets are doing compared to Atlanta and Tampa, some of the other markets that we're in. And this is just looking at the change in the nightly rate as a percentage of increase or decrease. And the nightly rates have actually been increasing a little bit in Atlanta by about 8% compared to some of the other markets that aren't doing as well. This is the demand growth. So Atlanta demand has also picked up by about 8%. The Newark, Jersey City, Newark, New Jersey, those of you that saw a few months ago, they shut down like 7,000 listings in New York City. So as a result of that, the surrounding area has gotten increased listings, and they're taking those bookings now for people that are coming to stay.
And there's so much more building in certain cities as well. So that's also another newer buildings.
Right. So part of your analysis when you're looking at your target market, the important part is the understanding what the ordinances are, right? So similar to New York City, you wouldn't think it, but Orlando, you're not allowed to do short-term rentals legally in Orlando unless it's your primary residence and you actually host the guests while you're still staying there. So what happens as a result of that, Kissimmee, they recognize the tax revenue benefit. So there's 17,000 listings in the Kissimmee city because everybody that goes to Disney stays in Kissimmee because they can't. They have illegals that are doing it in Orlando, but most of the activities in the Kissimmee market. All right, a lot of this is kind of this telling you the same message, how many stays and book nights. This goes back to an earlier question about, do we think Airbnb is going to really be a future? Historically, July, this past July, is the highest number of book nights in history for Airbnb and short-term rentals globally, right? So this is a continually growing market. It's not declining. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Regulations, right? Enforcement. We touched a little bit on this. Unfortunately, the Airbnb has different goals and objectives than we do, right? So whenever you have a jurisdiction that wants to restrict short-term rentals, Airbnb's immediate reaction is they come with this what's called model legislation, which has this primary residency as a requirement. So there's a reason why every major city, including where Airbnb is based in San Francisco, has some form of that primary residency requirement in order to get a short-term rental license legally, right? So unfortunately, the first time most of these city council members and county planning departments hear about the short-term rental model is when you have neighbors that are standing up complaining about the bad apples that have participated by throwing wild parties and not caring about the neighborhood, parking violations and things of that nature. And so when they go to a hearing to talk about short-term rentals, that's their first exposure to it. So Airbnb with their lobbying will come in and say, okay, we don't have to ban it, but we can restrict it in such a way that allows somebody that is living in their home, it's their primary residence, if they want this as an option to supplement their income, that they can do that, right? And so every single one of these major cities, LA, Vegas, Chicago, New York, we've already talked about, Orlando, and Atlanta has adopted a similar unfortunate way. This was the thing about New York City, where they shut down all those listings. And so a lot of times the regulatory goals are reasonable, right? They just want to make sure that housing is insured for the quality of life, for safety. But when they have this on major cities, every single city has these requirements. Either the host has to be present, or they must be you can only do your primary residence. Same thing with LA, Washington DC. They actually restrict it where you can only do it 90 days per year. So as an investor, that doesn't work if you want to get an investment property, because you can only do it 3 months out of the year. Chicago, you can do it with multiple unit properties, but you have to get a hotel license. You can't do it in a regular home. Boston, same thing. Seattle, they let you do primary resident plus one. And then City of Atlanta. Now, let me give you a little bit of the background here on Atlanta. Sure. So when we had this occur in Atlanta, March of 2021, there was a council member in the Buckhead district. His name is Howard Shook. And Howard lived on a street in Buckhead where there were 2 large mansions that were throwing wild parties. When I say wild, they were on TMZ with pictures of strippers and guns,
parties, yeah.
like at 4 o'clock in the morning, cars parked all up and down the street. So Howard didn't really like this as a councilor. I can't say I blame him, right? I wouldn't want that in my neighborhood. And so he at the time, he was a pretty long-term, still is today, a council member on the Atlanta City Council. So he basically started off like it does in all these other cities, proposing an outright ban of short-term rentals in the city of Atlanta. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other positives that temporary housing brings to Atlanta. We don't have enough hotels here to support the conventions, the film industry, and all the activities that are happening. And so he basically got, again, Airbnb immediately jumped in. We're in direct contact with the Airbnb lobbyists, and we kind of share notes on what we're doing with different lobbying efforts. Airbnb basically put the proposal, primary residency plus one more property. That's what they adopted. That's what they voted in and had approved in March of 2021. Now, since that time, the city of Atlanta has not enforced that ordinance. Okay, when they voted that in, at the time, I had 32 properties in the city of Atlanta. I don't live in Atlanta. I live in Beaufort. So I'm boxed out right away. I can't even apply for a legal license. This is my livelihood, right? So I went and found other short-term rental investors like me that have similar situations, and we formed a board of directors, and we formed a nonprofit, the Atlanta Metro Short-Term Rental Alliance, and we raised very quickly about $70,000 in legal fees, a legal fund. We hired an experienced attorney by the name of Wilson DeBose, who had done other legislative efforts in Georgia in fighting for property rights and grandfathering rights and things of that nature. So we drafted a legal letter, sent it to the mayor's office, basically explaining that we are forced to potentially file a legal lawsuit against the city of Atlanta for protecting our members on the ability to do our business and continue to do grandfathered short-term rentals in the city. We met with the city council members, the law department, the planning department. We sat down with them. We explained to them, look, we don't want to file legal action. We prefer to work something out.
Did Howard come?
Howard, no, we've been to meetings with Howard, but he didn't come to that one. And so they basically agreed to work with us to kind of redo what that ordinance is currently in its current form to make it more investor friendly. We attended several work sessions where these are basically public hearings where the public can come for and against certain things. We had probably about 50 people show up that are AMSTRA members that testified about all the positive things that we do. We talked about all the stuff we do for vetting and noise ordinance. We actually use noise detection devices, and besides our guest portal vetting, and we talked about all those things that we do, outdoor camera surveillance to make sure. And so basically we've gotten them to agree to a couple things already. They haven't done this, they haven't announced this formally. We're working through the final details, but they have agreed to remove the primary residency requirement. So you don't have to be a primary resident in Atlanta to do short-term rentals legally. They are going to do potentially, so they proposed a buffer. So instead of doing the +1, they propose, well, if you have, when you apply for your license, as long as there's not another short-term rental within so many feet of yours, you can apply for it. Can you imagine the administration nightmare of how to manage that? So instead of that buffer, we proposed what's called a global cap. And so similar to the city of Savannah, they have a 20% requirement that any time in historic Savannah, you can't have more than 20% of the properties doing short-term rentals. It will be a similar concept for Atlanta. So the 11,000 listings that Atlanta currently has represents about 3% of the available housing. So what we and Airbnb are proposing is more of a 10% number as a cap, which gives us plenty of room for growth. A lot of the council members understand that this needs to be beneficial for everybody involved. And as long as we're reasonable, they're open to that. We're also going to do a legacy license for if you're already up and running doing a short-term rental, there's no reason to be prevented from doing so, and you will be able to apply for a legacy license. Yes.
How does the global cap take like pad splitting into account?
So pad splitting is basically room by room rentals. The average stay is typically 5 to 6 weeks, right? So the short-term rental ordinance is defined based on 30 days or less rentals. So it doesn't really, the pad split don't really fall into that bucket.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like pad split on Airbnb.
I'm sorry?
I'm thinking like people who pad split through Airbnb.
Yeah, so the same thing. Airbnb does let people list that are doing longer term stays. You just won't be required to do a license for short-term rentals because your average stays are going to be north of 30 days.
Okay.
So, but pad split is another good option for room by room rentals. There are a lot of people that do well with room by room rentals. We personally, every single listing we've ever done has always been an entire house listing for one reason. Can anybody guess what that reason is?
Because everybody knows each other.
Yeah, safety.
More, you make more money.
It's easier to manage.
Well, so you can't scale that business. It works well if you have 1 or 2 properties and you can't incentivize a cleaner to go clean a room for $20 or a common area for $10. So how do you scale that business to get a large number of properties doing that? Right? Pad split does a pretty good job, but there's still the inability to really kind of fully control that process from start to finish. So, but it is in some cases, if you look at a 5-bedroom or 7-bedroom home compared to doing entire listing to doing room by room, it might be a little bit more profitable in some cases. But all those other reasons you mentioned, personality conflicts, issues, sharing common areas, fights breaking out, those types of things, parking, they have their own challenges with enforcement. So in most, like Cobb County, for example, you can't have any more than 4 non-related individuals staying at the same property. And so when you've got 7 people renting a pad split, they get code enforcement, violations as well. So, which is a whole separate issue.
I have a question. Can you speak a little bit more about the legacy license?
Yeah, sure.
And so you said that if you're already up and running, qualify for that. If you're not already up and running, or what's going to be the difference? What's going to be what license you can get afterwards, or what does that say for anyone else who's looking to get into the market?
Right, and so, yeah, so a lot of the investors that have been sitting on the sideline with what's going on in Atlanta actually would have been better off. Like us, we haven't slowed our business down. We've still been active, putting on new listings because you're probably in better shape to do that because of the grandfathering. So the way that it's going to work is once the enforcement starts, which is yet to be determined, once they announce the new regulation, they may put something out into the future that says by September 1st of this year, you have to basically comply, or we're going to start enforcing the regulations. If you're not licensed, there could be an issue. So if you are up and running your short-term rental as of September 1st or before that, you will be able to continue to do so without any additional requirements. We're going to define what those requirements are. Like, is it going to be providing historical information from the platforms, but some method to show that you've already actively been doing it as a short-term rental. And in that way, you won't be prevented from doing it. There may be some other restrictions on multifamily buildings. So if you're in a multifamily building, they might have limitations where you can't do any more than 15%, for example, in buildings with 5 units or more. Yes.
Is that license national or statewide, or
countywide?
So the license is only for the city limits of Atlanta. So everything I'm talking about with Atlanta is only for properties within city limits. So there are a lot of properties on the outskirts that might still be inside the perimeter, but aren't technically, like in DeKalb County, Decatur, Crescent Park, those other areas. Those are not included in the
So
ordinance.
you have to get a separate, another license for those other
Yes.
areas?
So when you do your research to figure out what market you want to go into, this is the first thing you should be doing, is understanding the ordinance and the rules. Some of the surrounding counties already have the rules defined, like Cobb County, for example, has a short-term license requirement. Where I am in Beaufort and Hall County, they have one. And a lot of times, they're not horror stories like what we're starting with Atlanta. They're quite reasonable, and they keep out the bad apples. A lot of them just require you to do an initial inspection where they're checking for smoke detectors, fire extinguishers. You apply for a business license. You notify them the contact information for the property manager or the person managing the property. And then they send a letter to surrounding neighbors that says, hey, this property is applied for a license. This is what they're doing. If there's any issues, please contact them, or you can contact the county's hotline. They have similar rules like that are very reasonable, like you can't disturb the neighbors, you can't have parties, you can't have parking issues in the neighborhood. But if you have 3 or more complaints, then you could potentially get your license suspended. Okay, very reasonable. It keeps out those bad apples like in Buckhead from causing issues. And so Cobb County is very similar as well. They recognize the tax revenue benefit of getting you licensed and having you pay taxes on those guest stays. Another great thing with Airbnb, a part of their platform actually collects those taxes once the rules have been defined, and they distribute them for you from each booking to that municipality. So you don't have to deal with that part of it. Yeah.
So you have the sales tax and then the hotel tax, the lodging.
Sales tax, hotel tax, lodging tax. There's a county tax as well.
Nice.
And so all that stuff is itemized on the reservation, and you don't have to. It goes directly to Airbnb's platform, and they distribute it for you, so you don't have to fool with that part of it. So that's one of the bad things about booking on VRBO. VRBO doesn't do that, so you have to manually do that on VRBO if you have any bookings. And same thing with direct bookings. If anyone's interested, this is a QR code to join AMSTRA. You don't have to be doing short-term rentals to be able to join. We are actually holding a free event on March 19th with right here in Sandy Springs at the Taco Mac. More of a networking event. We're doing more updates on what's going on in Atlanta. We're also talking about strategically, we'll have a channel manager company that's talking about channel management. That's another technology I didn't talk about yet that allows you to place your listing in multiple platforms, synchronizes your calendar so you don't get direct bookings, synchronizes your inbox so all of your communications can be handled in one place, so you're not going from Airbnb to VRBO to booking to talk to guests. It's all in one centralized area. So we have a company called Direct Software that's going to come in and talk. We also have an update on the Airbnb platform on what's going on there. And then we're going to be doing kind of a brainstorming session on what folks have been experiencing with technology on their listings. And so it'll be a good networking opportunity for those of you that are already doing Airbnbs and short-term rentals. There'll be other short-term rental investors there as well. That's on March 19th. Yes?
Do we have to register for that event?
You do. There's an Eventbrite link. I'm going to show a QR code to my Facebook group that I'll be putting out a lot of this information on. If you already joined my Facebook group, then you'll see it on there. Separately, I do have a Facebook group called BNB Investing Group. And I do weekly Facebook Lives where I do interviews with different short-term rental investors that have different niches. So if you have an interest in learning more about ADUs, there's a young lady that specializes that's based here in Atlanta that helped you figure out and navigate those options. I've also interviewed construction companies that do the construction for ADUs, if you want to learn more about that. We've done container homes, tiny homes, luxury tree houses, boutique hotels. You'll find out very quickly that the short-term rental universe is a lot of different niches. And so some people specialize just in management, some people specialize in rental arbitrage only, and then some people buy properties. I just had my last week's Facebook Live was with a guy from Cabo Homes. He and his wife he's a real estate broker, and he basically transitioned into managing short-term rental, so he has about 25 properties that he manages. But it helped him move away from his kind of full-time job because it gives him that monthly cash flow. And they employ the house hack model. So he and his wife spends a couple years in each property where they live in a part of the property and then they rent out the other parts with separate entrances, doing short-term rentals that pays most of the mortgage. They do that for a year or two, then they move to the next one. So he's up to 8 properties doing that, and then he manages 25 properties as a real estate agent. So there's a lot of different ways to strategically kind of increase your income and increase your property value by doing this. Yes?
Are all of those interviews and things like recorded or on your Facebook group?
They're on
or
my
on
Facebook
YouTube
group.
or- okay. So
Yeah,
you'll be
and
able
they're
to
also
watch
on
them.
YouTube. Here, let me just forward to where that is, and I'm gonna come back to some
I'm
of
so
this stuff.
sorry. To-
Oh, you're fine. I'll come back to this stuff because I want to cover it as well.
Okay.
How are we doing on time, Keisha?
Yeah, we said 2:00, but I don't know if anyone needs to go, you can step out, but, how much
Alright,
more?
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is the QR code for my Facebook group. I also do property tours on there as well. So the one I mentioned in Mosley Park, the 3-bedroom, I did a before and after tour because when we first purchased that property, even though they had it on Airbnb, all the walls were blank. Like there were no pictures up. And it was just bland and it just looked like an IKEA setup. So again, my wife does the staging, so she came in and kind of sprinkled in some love to it. And then so I did an after walkthrough to kind of show you guys what we did there as well. Let's see, let's go back where we were. Did everybody get that?
How do we get the link that you were talking about for Eric?
Let's do the links. Let's get the links out of the way. All right, that's the AirDNA free trial link. And if any of you are interested, I did a webinar that I have on YouTube that basically does a walkthrough of the AirDNA platform on how to do the market analysis and how to look at the different target markets. So if you're interested in that, if you want to, I'm going to put my cell phone number up here. You can text me your name and just type in webinar, and then I'll send you a copy of that webinar as well. It just kind of gives you an overview, once you log into AirDNA, how to navigate it and some pointers on what to look for. All right, so that's my cell phone number there. This is my contact information on that QR code as well. But if you text me your name and webinar, I'll send you a link to that webinar that talks about the AirDNA platform. All right, so the last 20 minutes, what I want to do is go through some details on the rental arbitrage opportunity and tell you a little bit about what we did historically, and then give you some more details on that. So before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the Airbnb-friendly apartments that Airbnb has rolled out. So most of you have probably heard about rental arbitrage and a negative connotation from people that are kind of doing it on the sneak on these larger apartment complexes where they don't allow it, but they're still doing it. Obviously, again, running it like a business, that's not the way we do ours. Every single lease we have, crystal clear says in there that the landlord agrees we're doing short-term rentals and corporate housing. Everybody's on the same page with that, so there's no issues, right? Airbnb has recently started this program that actually is showing that apartment complexes are now recognizing the benefit of Airbnb and short-term rentals. So what they've done, not only in Atlanta, but in probably 6 or 7 other major cities across the US, is they are basically in there as Airbnb-friendly hosting. So me as a tenant, as an individual tenant, can go rent an apartment there, and basically I have the option when I'm not there traveling on business, or if I want to go stay at my girlfriend or boyfriend's house for the weekend, I can rent the property out and make revenue as a short-term rental. So the apartment complexes recognize that this gives, with the rent increases, this gives consumers the option to be able to afford something that they may not ordinarily be able to, right? So they see that benefit. It kind of opens up their their tenant base to be able to make it available to other people. It also gives kind of a positive look when we're talking to regulatory counties and cities that this is another example of a positive that the short-term rental does is supplements income. Now, this doesn't really help us as investors because typically what they're doing is they're limiting the amount of time that you can do. Usually it's like a 90-day window throughout the year. The apartment complex partners with other property managers so they can manage it for you. The property manager takes a little bit of a fee, and then they give you as a tenant the rest of the revenue. And so these are all the different apartments that are doing it in the Atlanta metro area. And I just see it as a good sign of a lot of these larger corporate apartment complexes coming to better understand what the short-term rental model is, so that when we start having conversations with them about doing our short-term rentals, it's something that they already are familiar with, and it's kind of a step in the right direction.
And just for clarity, you have to already be the primary occupant, and you're just renting out a room or the apartment for a short time.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. But it's if you go on Airbnb, or if you type in Airbnb friendly apartments, there'll be a list of all these different apartment complexes that do this. And so if you're looking at opportunities to do rental arbitrage, that might be a good starting point to have conversations with them, but make it clear, I'm going to be trying to do this for the, so some of the large apartment complexes will allow you to do that. You just have to have that conversation with them. What's that?
So they take a huge.
They do take a fee, yeah, like 15%, 20%, 25%. Well, so as a manager, that's what I take. If I manage your property, I'm going to charge 25%. So that is the standard market rate for management of short-term rentals. All right, yep.
The map that you showed with the numbers where the apartments are in this area,
Yeah.
is that just the rental cost, or what are these numbers?
Yeah, that's the monthly rental cost.
Okay.
And then most of them are one bedroom. So this is just another example of the difference on rental arbitrage in terms of you're playing the arbitrage between what your monthly expenses are, which are all these items here, compared to what your gross rental income is to come up with your net. And so like I talked about before, on a one bedroom, a good target is 800 to 1200. On a 5-bedroom or 4-bedroom, a good target is north of 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000 as a net in terms of a target price. So just a little bit about background. So when we started this in the beginning, I found that it was much easier to do this model with smaller mid-sized properties that are not necessarily these large apartment complexes. So we started the first one. This is across from City Winery in Ponce City Market. It's a 1-bedroom condo. We learned the hard way. This one actually did have a condo association. So even though a lot of people were doing short-term rentals and the landlord agreed it was okay for us to do it, 3 months later, we got the letter from the HOA says we're no longer allowing short-term rentals. So ironically, we did that. We learned that lesson on the very first one. Ever since then, there's plenty of properties out there to do this with. You don't have to be in a condo association, right? This is another example in Virginia Highlands. It's a quad, it doesn't look like it, but it is a quadplex. It has 4 different 1-bedroom apartments in it. And this is what typically happens is you start out with one property, and after a couple of months, the owner sees the benefit of working with you. And so all of a sudden I'm getting opportunities for the other 2 or 3 that as those leases expire, are you interested in taking that one as well, right? So we very quickly went from 1 to 3 units in this quadplex. This is another example. This is an 8-unit building. The owner of the building bought it with one of the properties in there already as an Airbnb, and basically got burnt out very quickly from the guest messaging and just couldn't handle it. So we rented that one from them first. And again, in 3 months, we ended up getting not only 3 other units in this building, but they had another building very close in Virginia Highlands that we took another 4 units here. And so you'll find out very quickly if you do this model, it only takes a couple different relationships in the beginning to really grow a scalable business. So we went from 1 or 2 units to 12 units in like 6 months from doing this. Usually the mid-sized buildings work a little bit better because you can talk directly to the owner and have that conversation and be able to set that up. A few of the other examples, this is a quadplex near Piedmont Park. This is all new construction. These are 4 separate 1-bedroom apartments. And so the owner of this building actually gave us the opportunity for this. So again, it goes back to, you just start those few little relationships. This was a 22-unit building. And you asked the question earlier about what's the advantages to some of the multifamily buildings to do this, right? So this was a newly rehabbed building, right? So much like single-family rehabs, multifamily do this as well, where they buy a distress, they rehab it, and then they try to get more rent for it. At the time they did the rehab, just like on single-family rehabs, you have a hard money loan that you have to refinance, right, after you've done the rehab. So they had 22 units where 8 units were sitting vacant, right? And so they had to do this refinance, but they didn't have any revenue coming in from those 8 units. So we set up 8 units in this 22-unit building. Some of them are 2 bedrooms, and we did it within a 45-day window. So not only do we run our operation at scale, but we also teach folks how to do this at scale to set up. So when you have opportunities come up, you want to be able to get that done quickly. And so usually on 1 unit, to do it right, it's a 2 to 3 week process, start to finish. But when you've got a scalable business, we had the ability to do 8 within a 45-day window. And so there's ways to kind of scale this business as well to kind of add more units. And so that's how that benefited that multifamily owner. It's also a good way to control being able to have a hybrid. So we have some of the units that are long-term and some of them are short-term. We use those noise detection devices, measures the level of sound to kind of maintain, to make sure we don't get complaints from the other neighbors, because a lot of these are kind of close together. And so that's another example of technology that we use. I actually have a Facebook Live this Thursday with one of those companies. It's called Minute, M-I-N-U-T, and they have a noise detection device where it looks like a smoke detector. They've also added a smoke detection to it as well. So it detects cigarette smoke or marijuana smoke in your unit. And so you can have that, get a text notification if that happens, and basically be able to, know rather than waiting until when the cleaners go show up and it smells bad, right?
Am I mistaken, or did I hear something today that Airbnb has banned noise detection devices and interior cameras? I know interior cameras for sure.
April 1st.
Okay, I know interior cameras for sure, but I think they said noise detection devices. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not heard about noise detection devices.
I was listening to the radio this morning.
People have interior cameras?
Oh, yeah, they do.
That's like, you can't even have it in a hotel.
Right.
So how could you do it in the house? It's a hospitality business.
Some people.
There was cameras in like the living room.
That's ridiculous.
Area. But it's not like in the bedroom or bathroom or anything, it's just like in the living room area.
Some people, yeah, or some people doing it in common areas like kitchens and stuff like that.
Get out of it. I mean, what if you have to go to?
I know, right? I know.
Middle of the night?
Well, you better put your robe on, because they gonna see you.
Yeah, we've never done it internal. We've never done it inside.
So yours are just outside.
All of our cameras are outside.
Drink the juice from the container.
They do. They are close enough. Yeah. All right, so one of the things, and again, this is some historical data that looks at the average nightly rates of Diamond Edge performance compared to the market. So I usually go into a market with the objective of exceeding it by 20 to 30%. It may take me 3 or 4 months to do that, but the same thing with the occupancy, right? And so the blue line is our occupancy average. The red line is the average of that market. And so again, it goes back to running it like a business to make sure that we're maximizing and paying attention to how we compare to the average of the market. This was in 2022. So one of the ways very quickly that we accomplish that, this is a property up in Lawrenceville that we manage. And as a realtor, these are opportunities that are going to come up. This was a family that bought a house in Lawrenceville and they didn't want to relocate here for another year, right? Because of the kids in school and things like that. So rather than them having that house sit empty or put a long-term tenant in it, we did it as a short-term rental for the 12 months that they were not moving down, right? The other example, obviously, is if you guys are working with a lot of investors, even in this market, if they do a good rehab and they don't sell the property, we've done hybrid listings where we have a property listed for sale, but we're also doing short-term rental in the meantime to generate revenue. So it's another good option just to know about as you're working with your clients to be able to do that. So this house was a nice house. The purchase price was around $650. I had an outdoor kitchen, backyard pool, movie room in the basement. And, you know, so we started the market in Lawrenceville for 4-bedroom houses. This was in Collins Hill area, nothing special. The average market price on a 4-bedroom was around $300 a night, right? After the first 3 or 4 months, and after consistent positive reviews, we were able to command a nightly rate of about $900 a month.
I was just about to ask how you got to it.
Right? So that's an example of one of the months. So it's a 4-bedroom house. You're making $14,000 to $15,000 a month in revenue. But again, it goes back to hospitality, right? You want to get your 5-star reviews, and you can command a premium on that booking.
Is that going from the point that you just made that you try to? It takes you 3 or 4 months to get to
exactly because you have enough time to get that traction to get some good reviews and positive reviews going. Sure.
Is this per house, or is this until you become a super host and have these reviews?
No, so you can start today and get a review on your first booking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to be a super host to get
Okay.
bookings. But, you know, again, there are some travelers that only look at superhost listings, so there's an advantage to being able to get that superhost status. Let me see if I have that slide in here. I'll cover that real quick. I don't think I do. No, I don't. So in order to be a superhost, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, they do a quarterly review of your stats, right? So you have to have a 4.8 or higher review average. If you fall below 4.8, then you're not going to qualify. You have to have 0 cancellations. You have to have a certain response time rate, and I think it's something ridiculous like 24 hours. There's no reason why your response rate should be 24 hours. Ours averages about 5 to 7 minutes, right? When people are inquiring, you want to be able to respond to them directly. And so we have a guest communication team that handles virtual assistants that do all of our back office guest communications. So they also monitor these different noise detection devices and cameras and things like that to make sure everything gets looked at. And so the other qualification is you have to have a certain number of bookings. I think it's up to 10 bookings in the beginning, right? So every quarter they look at your stats, and if you maintain those numbers, you maintain your superhost status, or you get awarded it for the first time. So it takes that first 2 to 3 months to really start getting good reviews and get that traction, so that you can kind of make that as a goal.
What would you name as one of the like customer experience things that you do different compared to another Airbnb superhost?
That's a good question. So I actually like it when stuff goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it shows how responsive we are and how we react to that situation. So a guest that doesn't have anything go bad compared to one that does, but we corrected it in a quickly efficient manner, ends up getting a better review, right? And so it goes back to that responsiveness. In the beginning, I would recommend you handle your own guest communications, but as you scale your business, it is something that you can outsource and be able to make sure that it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the night, but you've got somebody responding to that issue and that concern.
What's the percentage of your guests who leave reviews? Do you ever have people that everything is great and they just don't do reviews?
Yeah, so probably about 40% across the board don't end up or do give a review, and the rest don't.
Right.
Yeah, so you just don't have no control of that either, right?
It
So.
goes great in my head, I won't tell you.
Right.
Just type it, please.
Yes.
Last question, because you said you don't have to necessarily do marketing, and I know you said response time like helps you stand out, but like, how are you, I guess, getting so many people or so many bookings over time? Like, it's just nothing you do, that the website just does it all for you, literally. Like, you don't have anything pinned or hashtagged or like.
Yeah, no, you can do your own marketing on Facebook and social media, but there's no need to
Okay.
with Airbnb, because the activity is they're, I mean, if you notice, they did a bunch of Super Bowl ads. They're spending a lot of money on advertising, right? And so you can piggyback on what they're doing. You don't necessarily have to do your own advertising.
And I think the great photos tell the story because it's a visual contact at first.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, 'cause I would have never thought that house with the pool was here in Georgia.
Right.
When you said $650,000, like
probably a couple of years ago.
This is another house that we have on Lake Lanier in Flowery Branch. This was a rehab project, so we bought it it was originally built in 1960. It was a full gut rehab. It was an $800,000 purchase, $200,000 rehab. And we're doing about $20,000 a month in revenue on that.
Oh, that's
property.
great.
It's on the lake with a dock, with a view, it has a hot tub. It's around the corner from where they filmed Ozark, the family house. This is another lake house that we manage. We own this one, but we manage this one. It's also in Flowery Branch, not too far away. And, you know, we're earning a 25% management fee on $25,000 a month in revenue. So it's good to have the diversity to be able to manage properties, plus properties you own, plus the rental arbitrage strategy. Right.
Do y'all have photographers come in? Are you doing drone photography? Like what?
We are.
You all do it. All of
No, we have different photographers that do the listing pictures.
And you all do y'all's landscaping as well? That's all in your team or?
Yeah, we have different ones for each property.
Okay.
Rich, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So for Cohort, what type of marketing?
Yeah.
Spending money on making the
Yeah,
furniture.
management services and marketing, there are some platforms you can go on to do that. There are, I just do a lot of networking in different real estate meetings as well. We get a lot of referrals from real estate agents. And so we pay a $500 referral fee for any clients that want to do management of their property. And so, it's just relationship based for the most part. And so this is an example of one of the reports that we'll run for our clients that shows them the difference between doing it as a short-term rental compared to a long-term rental. I know this is, blow it up. So basically, I'm looking at the monthly net after the management fee compared to if they rented this property at $2,800 a month, they're going to do $15,000 more in revenue for that 12-month window. And so this is another report that you can run with your clients to show them the benefit of doing short-term rentals if they want to consider that as an option.
What's that report through?
So when I'm going to be, and I'm going to share the dates with you when I finalize them, but I'm going to be doing a 3-hour CE class for real estate agents.
Here, right?
I can do one.
Yeah,
I'm going to do
we're
one.
gonna have one here.
Yeah, we'll do one here, but I'm going to be doing it at some of our properties as well. So we'll do a property tour, and then we're going to do a much deeper dive on how to generate this report, how to do the market analysis, and as well as some of the other things that we had questions on, the technology that's involved. So we're going to do a much deeper dive on those courses that goes into that.
I want to come to the one where you got the one with the pool.
That would be a good location.
Yes, girl.
Yeah,
Group tour.
we are doing that.
A
We're going
class and lunch, yes.
yeah.
And a bathing suit.
Teas,
And a bathing
teas.
suit.
So I think that's everything. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you guys have. I know that we're probably running short on
What
time.
would it cost after the free trial with AirDNA? Because I think it's such a great tool as realtors.
Yeah.
If our investors,
Right.
want to know if they can do it, we feel very confident that we're guiding them in the right
Absolutely.
direction. And we're not just like, I don't know, I guess
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
find out.
Yeah, so it's very reasonable. They used to have a per city subscription fee. So Atlanta used to be like $150 a month.
Okay.
Marietta might have been like $30 a month. Their entry level fees now are not based on area. You have global access, and the entry point is $25 a month.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, so it's very
Right,
reasonable,
anyway.
and that gives you access to all markets. You're not just restricted to one.
Can you move my house out of my subdivision?
Is it HOA?
Yes.
No, can't do that. Sorry, can't help you with that.
I'm in an HOA, but when I bought it, it was grandfathered and it's deeded that 4 units can be STR of any kind. So that was the miracle.
Oh,
That
nice.
is in a HOA,
Mhm.
and they deeded only 4 units. that can do STR. So when you sell it, it's grandfathered.
I love it.
Yeah.
As a brand new person, like new to real estate, new to all of this, just imagine I have nothing. Online and on Instagram, all the time I see all these people, oh, come take my Airbnb class, use other people's money, make $1 million, blah, blah, blah. Is that all BS? Like seriously, just as starting out, like what is the real timeline that I should expect to be able to be profitable, or like how much funding and whatnot and credit or loans would I really have to do
Right.
to be, you know what I'm saying, to
Yeah.
make something happen?
So we work with our clients and our students. The objective is to get you up and running in the first 90 days with your first short-term rental, whether it's arbitrage, management, or buying the property. So we teach on 3 different strategies. You choose one in the beginning, and we do a combination of one-on-ones with me. We do a week group coaching call. And then I also, different milestones along the way. So before you actually go to that first appointment to look at the property, I'm walking through the market analysis to make sure you've covered everything. Before you sign the lease, I'm giving you feedback on how to negotiate the lease. We give you documentation on everything we get added to our leases, so we kind of help you along the way before you get that first unit. And we walk you through getting that first listing set up and with all the tools we've been talking about, and then basically we rinse and repeat from there.
Okay.
Same thing with management. So we provide you with the management agreement that we use with all of our clients, and if that's the route you want to go to manage properties as well.
Now, is that the same with, like say the apartment complex as well, like for people who have more than one? Because I've heard different things about being able to have more than one apartment complex in your name with you having to be on the lease and things like
Yeah,
that.
so we, right out of the gate, you want to do a legal entity. You don't want to put it in your personal name.
Okay.
And so we walk you through all those logistics as well.
Okay.
So yeah, if you took my number down, I'd
I
love to
did.
have like a quick call with you and I can kind of see what you're trying to accomplish.
I texted you website a minute ago. So
Okay.
Monique Smith.
All right, Monique, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
My number,
I love what you said.
so same thing, if you guys have any referrals of clients that you want to refer to me as well, if we end up managing the property for them, we'll send you a $500 referral fee as well as another option. If you, go ahead.
Do you have any properties or know anybody with properties that may need to be sold right now?
That may need to be sold.
Yeah, I need something.
You need something?
I'm on the clock.
You're on the clock.
Well, the
So-
DNA,
I don't offhand, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, I'll
The-
text you if you come across some.
I'm in love
Okay.
with Air DNA
Mhm.
giving us the stats for the probability of you buying it. So even for your client, even for ourselves,
Yeah.
we're not,
You're not
trying to
going
guess.
blind, right?
Super excited.
Do you think the fix and flip is something like that? I guess a beginner should not do and go here first. So many people talking about fix and flips online. You see ads for all of this stuff everywhere.
Right.
Like with you having done so many different niches and been successful, what was the easiest, or what do you think would be the easiest as a start?
Well, I mean, that's why I do short-term rentals today, and that's why it's my core focus. I still do rehabs if we
Okay.
keep it as a short-term rental,
Okay.
but you're right, there are so many different niches, wholesaling, fix and flipping. And, knowing what I know today, I think short-term rental model is definitely a good way to go.
Stick with it. Okay.
I would say just off the top of my head, if I was gonna recommend, if somebody could buy something that's already Airbnb,
Mhm.
all they're doing is taking over.
Yep.
And possibly enhancing and adding to it so they have more revenue.
Yep.
But I wouldn't try to fix and flip if you don't have any money. I would do the moving into
Right,
it.
because
Why try to reinvent the wheel?
one of the challenges, like you mentioned earlier, okay, you fixed it, you flipped it, and it's taking 4 months to sell, and you are paying back a rehab loan,
Yeah.
and it's painful if you don't have that kind of revenue. Not to discourage, but that's a big feat.
Yeah, you asked a question earlier, what's involved with the money that you need? I mean, so realistically, obviously, I covered some of the numbers, but like on a one-bedroom, you're in the $8,000 to $10,000 range to get it staged and set up properly. So the other thing we help clients with is navigate setting up business lines of credit that don't impact your personal credit score. So help you grow in the beginning as well. To do it with the larger houses, you're usually 25 to 30,000, depending on the size of the property as well. And we also show you how to negotiate the lease terms so that you have a little bit of a buffer. So we typically try to get the first month free, so you don't have rent to pay right away. You have that rent period to kind of get set up in the beginning. You can also go after, like you mentioned, you can go after properties that are leased that already have furniture, right? You just pay a little bit more on the monthly rate. And so you can turnkey it in there right away and start generating revenue.
Rich, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Y'all please give him a round of applause.
Great.
We will have Rich back in the next couple of months to teach his CE course, and I will keep you guys in our investor cohort WhatsApp chat. I will keep you guys updated on what he's doing and when he does his class at the house at one of your properties.
Yeah, if you join my Facebook group, I'm gonna post it out there too.
Yes, and you
That's
can
the
join
March
Facebook.
19th one, right?
Yeah, we want to
No,
keep his taco night.
Yeah, that's AMSTRA.
Okay, two
We
separate.
do want to come to that.
The swimming pool.
I need both of them.
You gonna get out on the boat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep you guys posted, so just stay tuned to the group chat. If you're not in the group chat, please just text me and I will add you. My cell phone number is 404-202-5372. And I'll add you to the WhatsApp group. Just download the WhatsApp app. Okay? So thank you again. We appreciate you. This is good information.
Absolutely.
I
Thanks for
couldn't
having
have
me.
asked for more.
Good.
And,
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, so let me know the dates and I'll work it in. BNB Investment.
Oh, website.
And what I can do-
So Mr. Dooley's house in that Rickens Ridge community was at Airbnb. It was already furnished. He sold the furniture and everything.
But the best thing to do is just confirm.
He sold for $389, 5 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, $389. You good, man? I saw it online and I pushed like, and I saw Shannon. I said, that's right, Shannon. Hey, I'm over here. Wait, when, tell me. Hey, baby, how are you? Good. When's,
In the office over there. Oh, over there?
all right, thank you, baby. I appreciate it. My